So we're starting a new series today called Fearless, Finding Your Voice. My name is Tom. I'm one of the pastors here, and I get the awesome privilege of launching our new year and our new series today. We're jumping into the book of Esther, which is a really interesting story. You're going to love the book of Esther. Lots of good stuff in there. But first, I got to tell you a story, because I like to open with stories. And I was in 6th grade. Now, if you can imagine, I know it's going to be hard, but I used to not be the cool kid. I know. I was really, there was a time when I was not the cool kid. I did not have the glory of the beard at the time. In 6th grade, I was not able to facial hair at all. Had I been able to facial hair, it may have changed my entire life. I don't know. But there was a time when I was not cool at all, picked on, no confidence, just tried to hide, didn't really have a voice at all. And I didn't like talking to even family members. I was just like, don't talk to me. I don't like talking to anybody. I don't like being in front of people. And in 6th grade, my teacher, Mr. Taleric, he said, you all need to write a book report. Hey, all day long, book reports, not a problem. I can do this. He says, and then in a week, you're going to turn them in after you read them in front of the whole class. Are you serious? Like, I have to get up and stand in front of everybody and read my book report. I got to use my voice and talk in front of people. I didn't even like talking to extended members of the family. So getting up in front of a bunch of kids that didn't like me, all of a sudden I'm like, this is no good. I have a week now to be in full panic attack mode. I have an entire week to prepare for this, and I'm anxious and I'm sweating, and I had what was called glossophobia, which is a fear of speaking in front of people. 10% of society has it. And these are the symptoms: severe anxiety, panic attacks, nausea, lack of sleep, possibly wetting yourself in public. Okay, didn't do that one. I had all the other ones down pat, right? I was like, oh, Lord have mercy. 80% of the population, they're a little nervous, but they can get over it and get her done. And then there's 10% of you that are just nuts, and you're just like, I love speaking in front of people. I'm now in the 80%, but I used to be in that 10%. I still get nervous before I get up and talk every single time. So the day comes, and there I am sitting at my desk, and I'm like, today's the day, and I'm shaking, literally, oh, I hate this, I'm nauseous, I can't think, I can't do anything. And the teacher says, we're gonna do the book reports after recess. I'm like, serious? I got an entire day, I gotta think about this and worry, and this isn't fun, I don't like it. So there I am, I'm sitting, whole thing, we do recess. I'm not having fun at recess because I'm worried about what's about to come. And I didn't eat my lunch because I had no appetite. And finally, he's calling people one at a time to get up, and they're reading their book report. And he calls another person. And I'm like, am I next? Am I next? No. Oh, okay, they're done. Am I next? Am I next? No. I was further down the line. So I had this anxiety building. And finally, he says, Tom Rundel. No, I get up. I hide behind my piece of paper. I am hidden. You cannot see me. And I am reading my book report on snakes. And I can't remember what I wrote, really. But I just kind of read my book report, hiding behind the piece of paper. Couldn't see me. And then I set it down. I sat back in my chair, and I just crashed. Exhaustion. Nobody laughed. Nobody said, you book moron. Nothing happened. I just read the book report and got back down. But I used to have this extreme fear of using my voice in front of people. And then one day, Jason, our pastor, who was my youth pastor when I was a teenager, he said, I'd like you to do a message in front of the church. And I said, okay. I don't know what happened in between that moment and then, but all of a sudden I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So we're starting this series on Esther called Fearless, Finding Your Voice. Now, if you don't know the book of Esther yet, you're actually at your benefit, because it's good that you don't know it yet, because when you read it with fresh eyes, and not the eyes that, if you've grown up in church your whole life and you heard the story of Esther over and over and over again, sometimes it just becomes so familiar that you don't know it. You know what I'm saying? So if you've never heard the book of Esther, no problem. You're gonna love this book. It's amazing. A couple interesting things about Esther. Esther is in the Old Testament, first half of the book before Jesus came. And Esther it's named after the woman Esther, who was a queen during the time when the nation of Israel, God's people, were taken over by this foreign nation, Persia. And Esther is very bold and courageous. And it's about Esther finding her voice, using her voice, and saving her entire people from genocide. They were going to wipe out the entire people, the entire nation of God's people. They're going to wipe them all out. And this one woman saves the entire nation from genocide. And what's interesting, it's about Esther finding her voice, and she doesn't speak until chapter 4. So it's really cool because it's all about Esther's voice and using her voice, and she doesn't even say anything until chapter 4. She's not introduced in chapter 1 at all. So the book of Esther is actually, God's never mentioned in the entire book. It's the only book of the Bible where God isn't mentioned, which is also very interesting. But you see how God is working in the lives of the people and how God is guiding things, but God's never mentioned. So that's another interesting fact about the book of Esther. But what this book is about true power and false power. This book is about true power versus false power, and where true power comes from and where false power comes from. Now, Esther, she's able to find her voice and show us where true power comes from, and this king is the epitome of false power. So we believe that, that true power resides in external forces, right? Your boss has the ability to fire you, correct? He has power over you, or she has power over you. A police officer has power to pull you over at any given time. They just got to flip on lights and you are pulled over. They have that power, right? Your parents have the power to ground you, like still, even though you're like 40. I don't know how that works. Your teacher has the power to fail you. Your bank has the power to foreclose on you or give you fees and things. See, there's certain powers that we believe are out there, and they're more powerful than us when they're like above us. And then we have more powers than people that are back there. So kind of the game that we play is we're trying to get ahead of the person that's just ahead of us and get farther away from the person that's just behind us and accumulate more power so that we have the ability to make life the way we want it. But chapter 1 of Esther puts things in perspective. It shows us that these external powers, these external things, they're not necessarily the true power that is different. And we're going to look at that. So chapter 1, I got to read you this, chapter 1, because it's just so interesting. Verse 1, it says, these events, like talking about the whole book, happened in the days of King Xerxes, who reigned over 127 provinces stretching from India to Ethiopia. At that time, Xerxes ruled his empire from his royal throne at the fortress of Susa. In the 3rd year of his reign, he gave a banquet for all his nobles and officials. He invited all the military officers of Persia and Media, as well as all the princes and the nobles of the provinces, and the celebration lasted 180 days, a tremendous display of the opulent wealth of his empire and the pomp and splendor of his majesty. Holy cow. So if I could sum up those first 8 verses in one word, it'd be, dang. Right? Like, that's what we're supposed to feel when we're reading this. Like 127 provinces, he's got nobles, he's got rulers, he's got military officers, he's got banquets and officials, and he's got all these things, and he's throwing a party that lasts 180 days. Can I go? Because that kind of sounds fun, right? Like 180 days. So that'd be like Thanksgiving lasting until May. Yes, please. Bring the turkey on. That would be great. So this is a 180-day festival. So do you see what's going on in the scene here? They're setting us up for something. They're showing all this pomp and glory and majesty, and we're supposed to say, dang, that guy has got some power. And to be honest, let's just be honest, we all dream of having that kind of power, don't we? I mean, we're all, if we really get down into the recesses of where we are, we're like, man, I wish I could win the lottery. Man, I wish I could make it big. Man, I wish I could be a success. Man, I wish I could get more power than I have now. And why? Well, because then I'd be able to do what I want. I'd be able to arrange my life how I felt, the way that I envisioned it to be. I would have power to make my life the way I wanted it to be. Now, we all kind of dream of that kind of power. So the party goes on, there's all this elegance, there's this little sneaky phrase inserted right after this in verse 9. It's super sneaky, you don't see it coming. But here it is, it says this: at the same time as the big pomp and splendor 180-day banquet's going on, Queen Vashti gave a banquet for the women in the royal palace of the king. So somebody's not invited to the party. There is this fringe group of women who are kind of off to the side. You can go over there, you do your own thing, and they're just kind of off having their own little party because they're not there. They're on the edges because it says at the same time as all this is going on, this queen goes and she has her own little party. So there's a comparison happening here. There's the king's pomp and splendor. Look at me, look at my glory, look at my majesty. And the queen's just like, I'm doing my own thing over here. So there's meant to be this kind of a display where we're supposed to kind of look at both of them and say, there's two things going on here. This is interesting. So hold on to that thought, because then this happens. It says, on the 7th day of the feast, when King Xerxes was in high spirits. The direct Hebrew translation of there is drunk off his rocker, I believe. I'd have to double check on that, but that's pretty much what that means. When he was in high spirits because of the wine, he told all of his eunuchs who attended him, bring Queen Vashti to me with the royal crown on her head. Because he wanted the nobles and all the other men to gaze on her beauty. Now, it specifically says she needs to be wearing the crown. So then we need to be thinking like a good Hebrew who would be reading this. That means that he wants her to be wearing the crown, but it doesn't say she's wearing anything else. So a lot of scholars think that she's supposed to kind of parade herself in front of the king's party that's happening in front of all these people with nothing but the crown. So this is kind of this sleazy little display of power that the king wants to parade more of his property in front of all these people to impress them. So he's got this sleazy little request come in that he wants to just keep going with his pomp and splendor. And now look at my awesome trophy wife. This is amazing. Aren't I awesome? You see, the king, he has positional power. But the thing about positional power, he's the king, right? He's got military, he's got might, he's got authority, he's got all positional power, something that's been handed to you, that's on loan. Would he have all of these people in his backyard if he was some country bumpkin, just like he had a little pig roast in his backyard? None of these people are going to be there. Nobody's going to be there. Because all of a sudden his positional power that's on loan is removed, and all of a sudden he's left, and this positional power is on loan, and it props up a facade of who we wish we were, of who we think we should be. Positional power is totally on loan. And this is what he does. Like, positional power, he's like, okay, I've stolen money from everyone below me, and I've got the title of king. I am king and you are not. I have this amazing Queen Vashti. Pretty soon y'all get to check her out. I have 7 eunuchs that serve me. I've got all these nobles. I've got military and money and power and authority. And I have built a little kingdom of my own. It's my kingdom that I built. And it's glory. Look at my glorious kingdom. Isn't it great? So the king's like displaying his little kingdom in front of everybody. And everyone's like, that's pretty nice. It's bigger than my kingdom, for sure. Because you're the king, you have more blocks to work with than I do. But, that's pretty good. I like this. He's like, just wait, there's more to come. So when positional power is on loan, you get really defensive and fearful about people messing with your stuff, right? Because all of a sudden, if you get too close, if you start messing with this is not very, sturdy. We got to be careful of this thing. Positional power is on loan, and it just kind of props up our authority. But it's not real true power. It's just given to us. Authority is different. See, authority and power are different. Authority is given. Power is loaned to us in positions and titles and things that we can accumulate, but authority is different. Authority comes from authenticity. Authority comes when you've been through the fire, and people know you've been through the fire, and you've come out the other side, and you're like, wow, they're stronger. And then all of a sudden, when that person speaks in a room, it gets quiet. We need to listen to this person. They know what they're talking about. That's true power. That's real power. That's authenticity. Now, I like what Parker Palmer says about authority. He says, authority is granted to people who are perceived as authoring their own words, their own actions, their own lives, rather than playing a scripted role at great remove from their own hearts. You see, authority has been given to those who we believe are authentic. That's why they have the same root word, authentic, author, authority. All come from the same root, to create, to make. So this queen has a certain sense of power that we're going to see on display, because the next thing that happens in the story is meant to give us a, oh no she didn't, kind of a response. Because we've just seen the king display all of his pomp and splendor and majesty. And then the next thing that happens in verse 12, this is amazing, you're going to love this. So when they conveyed the king's order to Queen Vashti, she refused to come. I love that. I absolutely love it. She may have done that with a little snap. I don't know. It doesn't say. It's not in the text, but you might be able to read a snap in there. She's like, You want me to what? Nuh-uh. I ain't coming. That is true power. That is authority coming from this queen, because she refuses to come. And listen what the king does. This made the king furious, and he burned with anger. He immediately consulted with his wise advisors who knew all the Persian laws and customs, because he always asked their advice. And they met with the king regularly and held the highest positions in the empire. So the king is totally threatened by Queen Vashti's authority. You see, authority can threaten power, because all of a sudden when you get a little bit close to, what did you do to my structure? That's what Queen Vashti did. She's like, nuh-uh. And all of a sudden his power, his authority is threatened, and we're like, no, I gotta rebuild this because people are watching me. People are looking at me. People expect me. I lost one. I don't know where it went. But they're like, they expect me to have this all together, and the queen just kind of bumps into his little power structure, is threatened. And you've seen this. You've seen people fly off the handle when they've been questioned, right? Yeah. You have totally encountered people who then attack you for calling into question something that they have done or said. And maybe you had good intentions, maybe you were threatening, I don't know, but you've at least seen this response. People have built their little power structures. Don't get too close, it's a little fragile. Don't get too close. And what happens when Queen Vashti says, nuh-uh, which is Hebrew for, dang, that just went down. Y'all, can you find those bricks? I think they went that way. But Queen Vashti, she says, no, I ain't doing it. And the king's structure totally topples in front of everyone. And it says he burns with anger. So you all know what I'm talking about. So we learn here that true power is authentic, and it comes from the inside. What must be done to Queen Vashti? The king demanded. What penalty does the law provide for a queen who refuses to obey the king's orders? Rah, 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 rah. He's just going on and on. See, true power is internal. True power is internal, and it comes from a place of authority, authenticity. Because people with true authority are not trying to protect their little structures. They're not trying to be so defensive of things. Don't get too close. You might topple this over. In verse 16, false power is then revealed for what it truly is. It says that this is what the answer. The king says, what must be done to the queen? So this is what they said. Well, Queen Vashti is wrong, not only the king, but also every noble and citizen throughout the empire. Women everywhere are going to begin to despise their husbands when they learn that Queen Vashti has refused to appear before the king. Before this day is out, the wives of all the king's nobles through Persia and Media will hear what the queen did and will start treating their husbands the same way. Oh, really? Maybe that'd be a good thing. Just saying. There will be no end to their contempt and anger. So, yeah, they're doing the snap thing. And the king and his nobles thought this made good sense to issue this decree that said that husbands everywhere, wherever their rank, will receive proper respect from their wives. Like this here is false power revealed. You got too close, you knocked something over, now we're going to have to issue laws about this thing. We're going to enforce. It's going to be there. There's no courage there. It's all fear. It's all fragility. It's all defensiveness. And it's all an attempt to protect the false, fragile structures that was built. I love what Brené Brown says. She says courage is a heart word because the root of the word courage is cor, the Latin word for heart. Speaking from our hearts is what I think of as ordinary courage. Let me ask you a question. We all play this game. It's part of human nature to play this game. But what if you stopped playing this game? What if you stopped playing the power game? You stopped trying to become more powerful than the person ahead of you? What if you stopped trying to find your value and identity in things that you can accumulate? What if you stopped all of that and you had nothing to prove at no one's expense? What if you could learn that your voice is what matters and not your power? You see, it's not that power is bad or power is evil or money is bad or money is evil or position is bad or position is evil or any of these things are evil in themselves, but it's the love of them, the pursuit of them at all costs, even at the cost of our own soul. It's the pursuit of them in place of pursuing our voice and identity. It's not that these things are bad. What we see in the book of Esther communicated is that it is a beautiful thing when a person with true power gains positional power. Because then they do great good. They do great things, and God can work through them. When you have nothing left to defend and nothing left to lose, you can be a great source for good. Jesus tells us how to pursue this kind of voice. He says, do you want to stand out? Then step down. Be a servant. If you puff yourself up, you'll get the wind knocked out of you. But if you are content to simply be yourself, your life will count for plenty. See, that's what takes great courage. It takes great courage to speak up and to believe that your voice matters, to trust that you have value before you build anything, that your voice matters before you have a platform to speak from, to trust that you don't have to play this power game at all, that you can trust in love, vulnerability, authenticity. And when you learn to pray, really pray how Jesus taught us to pray when he says, Our Father, who is in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. When you pause right there, when you pray, your kingdom come, God, your kingdom come, there's a reverse prayer that happens that you don't know about, but it's your salvation. Because when you pray, your kingdom come, the opposite has to happen, and that is my kingdom. It's gotta go. Thank you so much for joining us for the very first Sunday of the year, for the very first Sunday of our Fearless series. My prayer for you today is that you will learn that your voice matters, that you will learn that you have value before you create anything. Your voice matters before you have a platform to speak from. And that God's love is generously poured out on who you actually are, not who you wish you were. That you have the courage to embrace that reality, to be vulnerable, to find your voice and to use it, because we need you to speak. No one else is going to say it. So go with that courage, go with that confidence, and we'll see you next week for week 2 of our Fearless series. Blessings.